channel. Today I will tell you the very disturbing case of Andras Pandy from Belgium. In 1997, Belgium was still digesting the case of Dutroux, and that is why Belgium's police began investigating other ongoing cases. This is how they end up with a Hungarian pastor from Brussels, Andras Pandy. 2 of his ex-wives and 4 of his children have been untraceable for 10 years. Andras Pandy is suspect number 1. The 6 members of the Pandy family disappeared between the periods of 1986 and 1989. The disappearances were not treated as a murder case until 10 years later. In 1997, a police investigator got his hands on a file that is a compilation of 6 disappearances of members of a previously unknown family, the Pandy family. The case initially began in 1985 because that is when an initial complaint was filed. Timea Pandy went to the police to file a complaint against her older sister Andres Pandy. At that time, Andras Pandy lived with 7 of his 8 children and 1 grandchild in Brussels. Daughter Timea had become unwanted pregnant and had given birth to a baby son, Mark. Timea filed a complaint against Agnes because she hit her with a steel rod. Agnes, her sister, was questioned a little later about this accusation, but she seemed to be very calm and declared that her sister Timea hit her head and nothing more happened, according to Agnes. Andras Pandy was also questioned, and he declared that his daughter Timea was still very immature and sometimes delusional. So it was word against word, and the complaint wasn't investigated any further. At that time, Andras Pandy had 8 children from 2 different marriages. With his first wife, Ilona Sores, he had 3 children, Agnes, Daniel, and Sultan. His second wife, Edith Vinter, already had 3 children that Pandy adopted, and together Vinter and Pandy had 2 more children who are still anonymous. After Timea filed a police report against Agnes, she and her son Mark moved to Canada, and also her mother Edith Vinter leaves the family with her son and moves elsewhere with her daughter Andrea. So now Pandy is left with 5 of his 8 children. His oldest daughter Agnes has taken over the household. On October 8 in 1986, Andras Pandy steps to the police himself. He wants to report the disappearance of his second wife Edith Vinter and her daughter Andrea. There, Andres was asked some questions about the relationship, where he mentioned that his wife could not adjust in Belgium. He also said that their sex life was not as good, considering he had multiple surgeries. This was also investigated by the police, but led to nothing. Andras Pandy himself was born in a Hungarian town, Chap, and he was very secretive about his past. In Belgium, he was a pastor and teacher of Protestant religion in some schools, and he had a great deal of authority in Belgium. The family of Andras Pandy had very little contact with the outside world. This was also noticed by the boyfriend of Tunde, one of Pandy's stepdaughters. Her father was absolutely not allowed to know about Tunde's relationship. But then, in 1989, Tunde and Sultan suddenly left for Hungary. Tunde herself does not say goodbye to her boyfriend, and it was Agnes who informed her boyfriend that she had left to Hungary without saying goodbye. Agnes asked the boyfriend of Tunde to not contact her ever again. Sometime later, Agnes goes to live alone by herself, and Pandy stays behind with his two youngest children. In 1992, Agnes wants to file a complaint against her father because, according to her, he had abused her. She told the police she was raped when she was 12 years old, and this lasted until she was 30, and then she suddenly got in a relationship with another man. That is why she moved out. Pandy at that time starts abusing his other daughters, and the reason Agnes filed a complaint was to protect her youngest sisters from their father's future actions. Andras Pandy was questioned about these complaints, but he denied everything. He was not prosecuted, but Agnes' goal was achieved. Her sisters were placed in a host family. Andres was described as a dictator. His will is law. He decided everything. He decided how, what, who, and when. He also determined who had become persona non grata and who had to disappear. In this period, Pandy lives with his youngest son, and the rest had disappeared without a trace. Only the disappearance of Edith and Andrea were reported, but 4 other family members have disappeared with no further notice. We're talking about his first wife Ilona, his son Daniel and Sultan, and his daughter Tunde. They have disappeared overnight. No one is worried considering everyone thinks they went to Hungary. Pandy said they have been taken in by a sect in Hungary, and he showed postcards so he could prove that they were still alive. In 1997, the police decided to re-examine everything. 3 people could be questioned: Agnes, Andres Pandy, and the youngest son, Andres Jr. Andres Pandy was not in Belgium at the time, and so they could only ask questions to Agnes and Andres Jr. Agnes didn't say much during the interrogation, but the police officers noted that she gets nervous at certain questions they ask, especially when it comes to the accusation her sister Timea had made at the time. Timea had accused her of hitting her with a metal rod. The second interrogation was with Andres Jr. He was 17 years old, and the police found it very bizarre. The police asked how he got to the police office, and his reply was that his father brought him there. When the police knew that Andras was not abroad, a search warrant was immediately conducted. When they searched the house, they found plastic bags with hair in them. Andras Pandy said his wife and daughters brought their hair back knows out of it. On October 16, 1997, Pandy was again questioned. He said that he had nothing to do with the disappearances. The police then started excavations in the garden and in the basements in hopes of finding remains of the family members. They started searching in the 3 homes that Pandy owned. They noticed that in all of his houses, spaces were created, intermediate floors and walls were created. And it felt like all the homes were converted into a fort. You could get from one room to another through secret ways. After several hours of digging, they found bones and blood stains on the wall along the staircase. Pandy denies all involvement. In the pit, they also found 2 packages of rice cakes. Those packages have a date on them. Pandy bought the house in 1990, and the packages had a date of 1998 on it. The bone remnants are brought in for DNA testing, but it yields nothing. They do not belong to the missing family members. They examined everything for a month, and other elements were found in the house, such as weapons, but Pandy says he has nothing to do with it and they must belong to the previous owner. In all of his homes, T-stop had been found, which is a plunger, also a saw machine and many sawdust and wood stoves. Pandy refused any cooperation. The file is stuck at this point, causing Agnes to be questioned again. In her youth, she looked up to her father, and she considered herself being in a romantic relationship with her father. When the wife of Andras Pandy left, he gave this status to his daughter. She was very impressionable and naive, and Pandy could easily manipulate her. He was like a god to her. After a long interrogation with Agnes, she finally falls through. According to her, Andras Pandy, her father, asked her to liquidate Timea, her sister. Agnes didn't want to, but she was very afraid of him, she said. She could not refuse his requests. The reason Timea had to die is because she did not want to give up her child. Mark was Timea's son, and Andras Pandy, the father of Timea, was also the father of Mark. So Mark was Pandy's property, and Timea went against him, so she had to disappear. Agnes' confession is a breakthrough in this case. She makes a second statement where she explains everything. She said that Edith Finter and her daughter Andrea are not in another country, but they are dead. They are murdered by Andras Pandy. He hit them in the head with a hammer. The reason why they had to die is because Edith made sure that Timea and son Mark were able to flee to Canada. He dismembered the bodies to dissolve them in a bath of acid. The house was shielded with blankets and sheets, and to collect the blood from the corpses, wood was sawed, and the sawdust was used to absorb the blood. Agnes, she had to help to cut up the bodies. Agnes Agnes tells this quietly to the police investigator. And she said that it took 1 week for everything to dissolve and to become some kind of blubber. And after that, they poured everything into the sewer in the street. Ilona Sones and Daniel were also killed by Pandy, said Agnes. According to Pandy, Daniel was disrespectful since he had called Pandy by his first name, and he had thus sinned against the 5th commandment. Ilona allegedly pitted Daniel against Pandy, so she also had to disappear. Both were lured separately to one of the houses. Andras killed his son, and Agnes killed her own mother. One of the most incomprehensible things a child can do. Those 2 bodies were also dissolved in acid like the other bodies. At that time, Sultan, the other son of Pandy, began to question the disappearance of his mother, which caused Pandy to kill his son as well. And when Andres Pandy found out that Tunde had a boyfriend, he also killed her, but without Agnes' knowledge. When Agnes tells this all to the police, she didn't show any emotion. The police had to carefully examine Agnes' statements to make sure she didn't make anything up. And to be sure, the police conducted everything themselves and had tissue and bones dissolved in acid to know if this could really be true. And indeed, they saw that Agnes' story could be true. In addition to weapons, diaries were also found. Diaries of Andras Pandy. He wrote everything down. He didn't write down the murders, but there were elements in there that could confirm Agnes' statement, such as when they went to the store to buy the acid. When the police asked Andres about the son of Timea, that he could be the father, then he denied that he could be the father. So they did a DNA test, which said that he was the father. When the results came through the DNA test, Andres Pandy said that he had ejaculated into a towel, and then she dried herself with it afterwards. Other than Agnes' confessions and what the police found in the houses, they didn't have much proof against Andras Pandy to go to court. When the trial started, Andras Pandy put on a show. In the end, the jury believed Agnes, so they sentenced Pandy to life in prison for the murder of 6 family members and the rape of his 3 daughters. Agnes was also convicted of the murder of 5 family members and received 21 years in prison. In 2013, Andras Pandy died in prison from an illness. He was 86 years old. He denied everything until then. Agnes served 11 years and is now on parole, free on parole. This was one of the most horrific cases in Belgium. So this was the story of Andras Pandy. I hope you like this ASMR version.